It started like any other sunny afternoon in a quiet, suburban neighborhood in Georgia. Birds chirped, sprinklers hissed, and families lounged under shaded porches. But for 14-year-old Jamal, that day would be one he'd never forget. He had just finished his summer basketball training at the local community center. Dribbling his worn-out ball, wearing his favorite LeBron jersey and gym shorts, Jamal decided to take the scenic route home, the one that passed through Greenfield Estates, a predominantly white, upper-middle-class neighborhood. It was peaceful, the sidewalks clean, the lawns trimmed, and the streets wide and quiet. Jamal, headphones in, humming along to his favorite hip-hop track, wasn't paying much attention to the stares he was getting from behind lace curtains and slightly cracked blinds. But one woman did more than just stare. Her name was Karen Whitmore, a retired schoolteacher in her early 60s. She had lived in Greenfield Estates for over 30 years, and she knew, or thought she knew, everyone who belonged in the neighborhood. And Jamal, according to her mental registry, was a stranger, a threat. From her living room window, Karen dialed 911. "Yes, this is urgent. There's a suspicious black male wandering our street. Looks like he's casing houses, possibly up to no good. I'm afraid for my safety and the safety of my neighbors." "How old would you say he is?" the dispatcher asked calmly. "I don't know. Maybe 17 or 18. Big guy. He's got baggy shorts and is holding something. I think it could be a weapon." The weapon was, of course, just a basketball. Unaware of the storm heading his way, Jamal stopped to tie his shoelace near a tree on the corner of Maplewood and Devon. That's when the patrol car pulled up with its lights flashing. Within seconds, the peaceful neighborhood transformed into a scene of tension and fear. "Hands where I can see them," the officer barked. Jamal froze, heart pounding. Confused and scared, he slowly raised his hands, the basketball rolling away. He hadn't done anything wrong, or so he thought. But in that moment, he felt more like a suspect than a boy walking home. The officer approached him cautiously. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" I'm just walking home from basketball practice," Jamal stammered. "Where's home?" "Eastwood, just past the highway." "And why are you here?" "I took the long way. I like walking this route. It's peaceful," Jamal said, trying to stay calm. The officer wasn't convinced. He asked Jamal to sit on the curb, pulled out his notepad, and started questioning him further. Meanwhile, Karen watched smugly from her window, satisfied that she had saved her street from a potential criminal. But what happened next left her, and the entire neighborhood, absolutely speechless. As Jamal sat on the curb, humiliated, a sleek black SUV came to a halt beside the scene. Out stepped a tall, commanding woman in her mid-40s, wearing a tailored suit and heels. Her eyes locked onto her son, and then turned sharply toward the officer. "Excuse me, officer. What's going on here?" she demanded, her voice calm but ice cold. "Ma'am, we received a call about suspicious activity." "Suspicious activity? That's my son. He's 14, coming home from practice. Are you seriously telling me someone called the police on a child for walking home?" The officer hesitated. "We had to respond to the report." "Of course you did. But did you stop to ask yourself what the actual danger was here? Or did you just assume a black boy in a white neighborhood must be up to no good?" Karen, still watching from the window, started to feel a knot form in her stomach. She hadn't expected a confrontation, and she certainly hadn't expected her to show up. Because Jamal's mother wasn't just any woman. She was Attorney Monica Hayes, a former federal prosecutor and now a leading civil rights advocate. She had spent her entire career fighting for justice, equality, and fair treatment. And now, here she was, watching her son be treated like a criminal on a sidewalk. "Officer," she continued, pulling out her phone, "I'd like to record this. For documentation. And I'll also be requesting the body cam footage. For my files. Would you like to continue this conversation? Or should I speak to your supervisor?" The officer's tone shifted immediately. He offered an apology. He tried to explain, but Monica wasn't interested in excuses. She comforted Jamal, picked up his basketball, and looked at the now panicking Karen across the street. Then, calmly, she walked up to Karen's front lawn. "Excuse me," she said loudly, knowing the neighborhood was listening. "Was it you who called the police on my son?" Karen opened the door halfway. I I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. From a child? Monica asked. From a boy walking home with a basketball? I hope you realize the damage your fear has caused. And I hope you understand that not every black boy is a threat, and not every white neighborhood is your personal kingdom to police. There was a long, tense silence. And then something strange happened. Neighbors began to emerge from their homes. Some looked embarrassed. Others looked ashamed. A few nodded quietly in support. Because for the first time, many of them realized they'd been silent witnesses to a pattern that had gone unchallenged for far too long. Jamal sat silently in the passenger seat of the SUV, still shaken, his hands nervously tapping the basketball resting in his lap. Monica glanced over at him while she drove, her grip tight on the steering wheel. "You okay, baby?" she asked softly. He didn't respond at first. Then, quietly, he said, "Why did she think I was dangerous?" Monica's heart sank. How do you explain fear that isn't earned? How do you describe prejudice to a child who was just being himself? "She didn't see you, Jamal," she finally said. "She saw a story she's been told all her life, and you didn't fit where she thought you belonged." At home, Monica made a few calls. By the end of the day, the video she had recorded, calm, clear, and undeniably powerful, was posted online with the caption, "14-year-old boy harassed by police because a woman felt threatened by his skin color." Within hours, it went viral. The video spread across Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram like wildfire. People were outraged, sharing their own stories, posting supportive comments, and tagging local officials. Activists and influencers reposted it. News outlets picked it up. Hashtags emerged. Hashtag walking while black. Hashtag justice for Jamal. Hashtag do you see me now? The next morning, reporters gathered outside Karen Whitmore's house. The once quiet neighborhood was now the epicenter of a national conversation. Karen, shaken and defensive, issued a public statement. "I made a mistake. I didn't mean any harm. I reacted based on what I saw, and I was afraid. But the damage was done." Monica didn't call for revenge, but she did call for accountability. She organized a community forum at the local high school auditorium, inviting residents, officials, and law enforcement to attend. Hundreds showed up. Many came expecting tension and anger. What they found was something far more powerful: truth. Monica stood at the podium, her voice steady, her presence commanding. "I'm not here to accuse anyone," she began. "I'm here to ask a question. Why is my son considered dangerous for simply existing? Why do we instinctively fear what we don't understand?" She paused. The silence in the room was heavy. "I'm tired. We're tired of teaching our children how to survive interactions that should never be dangerous in the first place. Of code switching. Of teaching our sons how to look non-threatening while jogging, shopping, living. We don't want special treatment. We want to walk our streets, your streets, without fear of being seen as a threat." Then she added, "I forgive Ms. Whitmore, but forgiveness doesn't mean silence. Change comes from truth, and truth begins when we stop pretending this doesn't happen all the time." A white father in the front row stood up, holding his daughter's hand. "I didn't get it before," he said, "but I do now, and I'm sorry." More people rose. Teachers, nurses, pastors, business owners. People who had been silent before began to speak about biases they'd carried, things they'd witnessed, comments they hadn't challenged. Something shifted that night. The room felt heavy, but also hopeful. After the event, Jamal stood beside his mom as people approached to thank her, to apologize, to share their own stories. One woman knelt beside him, eyes full of tears. "I have a son your age," she said, "and I hope one day he's as brave as you." Jamal smiled for the first time that day. Meanwhile, back at the police department, things were changing too. The officer who detained Jamal, Officer Ryan Davis, requested a private meeting with Monica. Nervously, he sat across from her at a small table in the community center days later. "I want to say I'm sorry," he began. "I realize now that I escalated a situation that didn't call for it. I was responding to a call, but I didn't see him for who he was. I saw what I was trained to see." Monica studied him. "You didn't create the system. but you are responsible for how you operate within it. I know, and I want to be better. I want to be part of the solution. She nodded slowly. Then start by listening, and make space for the stories you were never taught. That was the beginning of something bigger. In the weeks that followed, the City Council approved a proposal to fund mandatory bias training for all law enforcement officers. The school district included a new curriculum on cultural sensitivity and systemic racism. And most importantly, the community created a task force led by parents, youth, and police officers to build better bridges across the lines that once divided them. As for Jamal, he went back to playing basketball, back to his old route, because he refused to let fear dictate where he could walk. He was no longer just a kid in a jersey. He was a voice, a symbol, a movement in motion. He started a podcast at his high school called See Me Now, where students of all backgrounds shared personal stories, challenged stereotypes, and talked openly about things most adults avoided. It gained local popularity fast, and on one episode, Jamal read a message aloud. To the woman who called the police on me, I forgive you, not because you apologized, but because I won't carry your fear as my burden. To those who watched and said nothing, I see you now, but it's not too late to speak. And to every kid who ever felt out of place for simply being who they are, keep walking. You belong here too. The ripples from Jamal's experience didn't just stop in his hometown. Soon, civil rights organizations began referencing the incident in national conversations about youth profiling. Universities invited Monica and Jamal to speak at panels and conferences about modern-day prejudice and the power of community response. One professor even included Jamal's podcast, See Me Now, in his syllabus for a media ethics course. It wasn't that Jamal or Monica had set out to be activists. They were just trying to live, to walk, to exist without fear. But sometimes the most powerful movements begin not with grand speeches, but with a single, quiet injustice, and someone brave enough to say, this isn't right. One morning, Monica received a letter in the mail. Handwritten, no return address. I watched the video. At first, I was angry, not at you, but at what it forced me to confront. I realized I have crossed the street at night when a black teenager walked by. I've clutched my purse. I've thought the worst, but I never thought I was part of the problem. Your story changed that for me. I see things differently now. Thank you. Monica folded the letter gently, tears brimming in her eyes. Not because the letter fixed everything, but because it meant someone saw now. Sometimes, awareness is the first thread that unravels the knot of generational fear. Meanwhile, Karen Whitmore had taken a leave of absence from her HOA position. Public backlash had been swift, unforgiving, and viral. Some neighbors shunned her. Others expressed private support, but stayed quiet in public. Eventually, Karen agreed to participate in a community reconciliation circle, a local initiative bringing together those harmed and those responsible in a restorative, face-to-face conversation. The room was small, simple, a circle of chairs. Monica, Jamal, a mediator, and Karen. Karen's voice trembled as she spoke. I've been asking myself why I reacted the way I did. I keep saying it was fear, but I realize now it wasn't fear of danger. It was fear of discomfort, of difference. I didn't see your son as a kid. I saw something I was conditioned to fear, and that's on me. Jamal looked at her, calm but firm. You made me feel like I didn't belong, like I had to defend my right to walk. I didn't do anything to you, but you called people who had weapons to stop me. Karen nodded slowly. I was wrong, and I am deeply, deeply sorry. The mediator guided them through a dialogue, not for the sake of justice through punishment, but justice through truth, through accountability. Karen eventually committed to undergoing anti-bias training and volunteering with youth mentorship programs in underserved communities. Later, Jamal would say, I didn't do it for her to apologize. I did it so the next time she sees someone who looks like me, she doesn't flinch. That reconciliation meeting wasn't televised. There were no microphones, no applause. But it mattered, because real change rarely happens in front of cameras. It happens in those quiet rooms, in those hard conversations, in the willingness to sit in discomfort and not run from it. As the weeks passed, Monica and Jamal returned to a new rhythm. But things were different now. At the grocery store, People stopped them and said thank you. Teachers at Jamal's school introduced classroom discussions around race, empathy, and media responsibility. A scholarship fund was created in Jamal's name for students who show resilience in the face of injustice. And one afternoon, as Jamal walked the same path home from the park, basketball spinning under his palm, backpack slung across one shoulder, he noticed something. A little white boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, was sitting on his porch watching Jamal walk by. He didn't look afraid. He smiled and waved. Jamal waved back, and the boy called out, "I saw your video. My mom showed me. You're cool." Jamal laughed. "Thanks, little man." That simple moment. Two people, two generations, two races connected not by fear, but by recognition, said more than any viral video ever could. We often ask, when will things finally change? But maybe the better question is, how will things change? And who will lead that change? Will it be lawmakers, leaders, teachers? Or will it be a 14-year-old boy with a basketball and a mother who refused to be silent? Because what Monica did wasn't just speak up. She taught a nation what a mother's love looks like when it stands toe-to-toe with injustice. And what Jamal did, what he didn't do, taught the world what grace looks like when you've been wronged. Their story isn't just one incident. It's a mirror that reflects uncomfortable truths, but also the possibility of growth. It reminds us that awareness is not enough. That silence is complicity. That privilege, when acknowledged, becomes a tool for justice, not guilt. And it reminds us that sometimes the most powerful protest is presence. Showing up, being seen, refusing to shrink. So the next time you see someone walking where you don't expect them to be, ask yourself, am I seeing danger? Or am I seeing difference? Because one costs us nothing, and the other costs us everything.